Recording is on.
All right, cool. Alexa, then, did you want to kick us off with what you've been working on the last couple of weeks?
Sure. Thanks for the time. I think more than talking about what I've been working on the past couple of weeks, I kind of wanted to talk about what I'd like to work on a little bit, or what I've been starting to work on a little bit right now. When I started hearing about the law that passed in El Salvador about Bitcoin being kind of legal tender within the next 90 days, I think it's now down to 85 or so. Makes me think that I need to focus a little bit more of my attention into the Spanish education that I've been kind of setting to the side. And I've been thinking on how best to do that. I started on a couple of graphics that I shared on Twitter, but I think it probably needs to be something that people can go through, that it tells you the positive and the negative, the things that could go wrong and that you shouldn't do, and the reasons why some things are good, and something that would be in Spanish and that people could understand, and I would have some visuals to go along with it. So it's not something that I can exactly show, but it is something that I love to hear some feedback on, or any ideas as far as how best to help on this, because I started thinking visuals, right? But there's so much about Bitcoin that you need sometimes to show people that I'm thinking maybe it's better either like in an animated video or in a micro site, not just a lot of imagery, but kind of this practical guide that could tell people what is right and what is not, or not what is right and what is not, but how to make choices that are good based on their specific situation. And just thinking of it like as a starting point for Bitcoin. How do you actually get into Bitcoin? What is it? Just basics. And I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on this in particular?
Memes. Maybe one of the easiest ways to start.
Yeah.
But have we done a Spanish translation of the design guide? I know that would obviously be a lot of work, but I mean, in terms of providing value to, Spanish-speaking tech communities around the world who want to use these tools, I think a Spanish translation of the design guide would be unbelievably helpful. I'm sure a lot of people find that really helpful. That being said, a lot of Spanish speakers speak sort of English sort of tech jargon, so I just don't know if it would be easier to understand certain concepts in a home language. Yeah.
I do think the situation's a little bit different, though. I don't think it's just about addressing issues that product makers may have. This is something that is going to affect like every person in El Salvador. So I think it's something that also requires a little bit of an introduction to people, just on knowing what Bitcoin is. And I think that even though product makers are more likely to have some knowledge of English, it is likely that a lot of people may have some knowledge, but not necessarily enough to understand it deeply. So it is important to have something in Spanish for people. And yes, I do think that there'll be more product makers probably that want to join this, join what is happening, so that they can offer those services to people. Though I know that Strike is big, and I think I saw something in Slack this morning about another app that they're using in El Zonte. So I'm thinking those are the ones that I probably have a bit of are a little bit ahead just because they're starting to be used. But since this is something that's going to encompass the entire country, then I think it needs a little bit of both education for product makers, but also education for people who have no idea what Bitcoin is or how to use it.
Well, I'd be curious to know what, from some of the people who've been working in Bitcoin Beach, like what their experiences are. Like, you know, if they manage to convince an entire town to use Bitcoin, I imagine that there must have been some techniques, you know, or some you know, things that they explained to people that worked really well, that people understood a lot. And I imagine there's probably some other things that, you know, they tried that just didn't work, that people didn't understand. So it might be useful to, you know, get their perspective on it and see what they've tried and what they haven't tried.
One of the interesting things that that came out of that, I was listening to an interview, is that they kind of like stopped trying to get like the older folks using it, and got the younger folks instead, because it was, yeah, obviously, you know, troubles with technology and whatnot. And so that's obviously like a big hurdle. And, you know, I don't know if you could do that on a nationwide scale. If it's, you know, to say that, you know, older folks aren't, you know, we don't focus the education material on older folks. But one thing in particular with El Zonte, Bitcoin Beach, is that they also like I think they were given like some donations and stuff, so for like community development. So I think that also affects the you know, how people use it and how they get attracted to it and whatnot, you know. So yeah.
What I mean, the Bitcoin Beach and the sort of local economy use case, I think, is really compelling, but you need to be in the right place, right? It's a multiplayer game, and you know, if you're the only player in town, it's not going to work. So they will have to be sort of coordinated, and I think they often, you know, work on small bribes, in that you give people a little bit of Bitcoin, and they kind of like, you know, almost have to, or you know, extremely motivated to actually join the group or join the game. But I think in the rest of the world, and especially in you know, the US and Europe, it's, you know, what's attracted people mostly, I think, is the single player version, right? People want to get rich. I know it doesn't, you know, we don't always like that narrative, but I think it's 85% plus of why people get into Bitcoin. They hear it from other people that got into Bitcoin. They hear about it in the news. They hear about it various places, that so-and-so, you know, bought Bitcoin ages ago and they got rich. That's certainly my experience from Coinbase, right? Of course, that's an exchange. So, but people hear about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has an extremely strong brand. Back to Connor's point about Ethereum, Bitcoin's brand recognition is just like off the chart compared to anything else in crypto. So you got that going. But you know, the second thing people hear after, you know, okay, now I know about Bitcoin. How do I get some? So that's the sort of single player version that I think is also very attractive to people, but it's a completely different story.
Yeah, and I think in this case we need to look at possible cultural differences. You know, so I'm thinking of what Johns is saying, that they focus on the younger people, and I don't know if it's just Latin America, but Latin America tends to have a very family-oriented culture. So usually it is very common for older people to trust kind of the younger people to do things that need technology. So I would say that I would completely understand that. And it doesn't mean that you kind of exclude the older people. It more means that they rely on the younger people to help them get things done. And in terms of price, what I've been listening in a little bit on conversations that are happening in Spanish, and I think that the biggest thing is that it's more of a fear factor. And I hadn't realized it culturally speaking, and it may not be true for everyone, but it is something that I think sometimes we have seen too many cases of people trying to scam you some way, and the stories have passed down through generations, kind of thing. So so actually having something that goes up in value, sometimes it's a negative. Sometimes it's a sort of thing that you say, is this for real? So I think in that cultural environment, it may be a little different, but it's possible that it's not. And it's one of those things that we need to pay attention to.
I don't know if it's okay to, but sorry, go ahead. I'll wait.
No, we're gonna keep it rapid fire. I was gonna give everyone 10 minutes. I've just realized I want to talk about something as well. If there's no other comments, thanks, Alexa. Did you want to say something, Patricia, before you go to the next?
I'll just talk to Alexa about it later. I just love this idea. I think there's a lot of potential, but I agree. We should let everyone have a chance. But I'll message you later, Alexa. This is a great idea.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your points of view. And if you have any other thoughts, place them in.
Thanks, Alexa. All right, rapid fire today. Ed.
Sweet. Yep. Let me just share my screen. Or I can also share my file as well. Yeah, cool. Hey guys. As a few of you know, I've been posting in the Slack channel. I've been working on some stuff for the OpenSats initiative. Just initially, I sort of spent a bit of time putting together like an exploratory like landing page and like what it could potentially look like. And since then, have also been running through what like a sort of like an explore grants page could look like, as well as like the actual grant page itself and certain components, like maybe making a donation and what that would look like. And then also a bounties page, because that also seems to be something which Ben wants to get on the project. Is sort of like individual bounties, and then perhaps those bounties can also like fit into certain grants or projects. So this is some of the stuff I've just been working on. A lot of it is modeled off of taken inspiration from Gitcoin, which I know is like an Ethereum project, but I personally think that they do a really good job at organizing the community around this type of thing, and it kind of ties into that conversation we had earlier about like sparking imagination in the community and allowing people to feel like a lot is actually possible to build with Bitcoin. So that's kind of the design style that has been gone with, is like, you know, it's like a unicorn on the front page, or just like, let's make it a bit more fun and magical, and make Bitcoin like a bit more, exciting is the wrong word, but maybe a little bit more accessible to some people. So yeah, would love any feedback on these things. Just FYI, the illustrations for the landing page were taken from like a free pick website type thing. So they're like free illustrations, but hopefully if we liked them, or if we wanted something slightly more relevant, then we could get someone in the design community to do some slightly more customized illustrations for the page. But yeah, feel free to take a look. If anyone has any feedback, that would be awesome. Whether it's now or just shoot me a DM. But yeah, and also if anyone wants to collaborate on it, feel free to hop in. Like it's open. So kind of just rolling with it at the moment. But yeah, if anyone has any ideas or any suggestions, then I'm very happy to open it up.
I've got some stuff that hey guys, I'm Tanner. I'm new. I just joined over the weekend. And I kind of jumped in and did some visual design stuff for OpenSats as just a way to kind of learn where everything's at and kind of like the workflow of you guys. If you'd like, I can share some of the stuff I worked on over the weekend.
Double OpenSats feedback.
It's awesome.
Love it.
So I took more of like a retro approach to creating like a bit of a more bold logo, and I really kind of focused more on creating a bit of a like creating the initial logo and thinking about what that might look like online and on merch and things like that.
Tanner, do you want to share your screen as well?
Yeah, sure.
I think
just once.
I think that link is.
I find it hard to access the link. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I'll just share my screen.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, we're getting like a little file not found thing. So maybe it's just like a
So you know
link.
what? I needed to make it shareable. Anyone with a link can do. There we go.
There we go. But also sharing screen works too. This is great.
So there you go. So yeah, I just kind of took the orange coin idea and the letters O and S and just started kind of breaking apart things and experimenting a bit with what, you know, an OpenSats logo might look like. And just kind of started playing around with some typography. So yeah, very early stage stuff, but trying to just kind of create like a tone or a mood with a general look and feel for, you know, where we could go with this. So yeah, that's kind of where I started. I also created this framework over here that you can actually just put different sections of the website in, kind of mess around with the different sections. But yeah, that was just kind of my first approach to coming up with some design, some visual designs for the site.
Very cool. Welcome, Tanner, and thank you. Do we have any kind of double whammy feedback for OpenSats for Ed and Tanner?
Are you asking me if I have any initial feedback?
No, just asking the rest of the guys if they've got any
everyone.
initial first thoughts. Obviously, Figma is everyone take the files and leave comments and all that good stuff. But as I'm speaking now, like any initial bits of feedback, I think Christoph wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, what brands do I see? I see Nintendo. I see a Pokeball. I feel like I see so many things in there.
I was going to bring it through.
It's got that kind of Atari Commodore 64 kind of feel going. It's mainly because of this typography here, this avant-garde, ITC avant-garde font, and it's got a bit of a retro approach to it, which I just always kind of I'm always drawn to that kind of look and feel. So yeah, that's probably why you're getting those vibes.
I like the one with the sun.
You're breaking up there, John.
It's a little choppy.
Yeah, John.
Maybe write it in the chat. See if the chat will be better.
Tanner, you can stop sharing now if you want to.
Ed and
yeah,
Tanner,
sure.
what kind of feedback would be good for when we're poking around here later in these Figma files?
Really anything. Yeah, any type of feedback's welcome. Like I said, this was just kind of my first jumping in, getting my feet wet with the community and seeing, meeting everybody. So it might even be that this look and feel might fit better with another project. But I just kind of took the OpenSats and ran with it. It's something I might like to see on a T-shirt or as a, just from a branding approach. And I'll continue to kind of experiment with it. But
yeah. I'm seeing kind of two approaches here. I feel like you're kind of focusing on like the branding and just kind of like, when you glance at the brand, what does it look like? And, Ed is focusing on it more from like a, how's the content structured and all of that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I really like the other designs as well. So this is just the first project that I kind of threw my hat into the ring. So.
Well, thank you for throwing a hat in, first of all. I mean, it's, yeah, really great to have you here, dude. And awesome designs. See if we can try and merge them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really excited to hear about the whole community. So yeah, really cool just to meet all of you guys. And I talked to Christoph briefly over the weekend, and it was a really cool, really interesting meeting. So yeah, it's I don't think I've ever been a part of like an open source design group. So this is, and it's Bitcoin. So very cool.
Yeah, its your designs are super clean, man. I think I might have played around with Gitcoin in the past, and yeah, it's quite an impressive site. I wonder what would be the process for deciding like what projects like get prominent positions on like the homepage, for example. Like obviously we've got the free Zeus, the design guide and chain case page, and would that be like would that be random? Would it based on like how many people are contributing to the project? Would it be based on how well it's funded, do you think? Or
yeah, so I mean, I think the so I think with the grants on Gitcoin, it's kind of done through these. It's like a weighted version of it. So I think they have, one of the reasons I think they got really popular real quick was because they did a bunch of they're kind of like online hackathons, or at least like funding rounds, where basically if I donated, let's say I gave Tanner like $5 for his like logo design, Gitcoin would actually match that grant. So that's how they got really popular. And they have like this weighted system whereby it's like a determination of the number of people who donate multiplied, I think, by like how much is actually donated, and then those tend to like filter to the top. But you can also search by different types of categories, like alphabetically or most recent or oldest or whatever it is. So it's not yeah, I guess that's one question, is like how do we avoid bias, because obviously I've just chucked in like Zeus and Chaincase and a couple of other things in there. That's obviously just for like mock-up designs, but I want to be conscious of not pushing like, or not being biased towards some projects over others. So I think that's a great question, just in terms of like how does the actual website function. I think in terms of feedback, I'm open to all feedback, whether it's written or verbal, whatever. Please feel free to give it now or later. But mostly just in terms of like going through a successful user journey of someone who lands on the website, explores a bunch of grants and maybe contributes something to a grant, or someone who wants to upload a grant themselves and seek funding. So just basically going through those two things and how we can kind of get that ball rolling as fast as possible, and then we can start to like fill in a bunch of the other areas. But yeah, in terms of like how the projects are actually weighted and how they get to the top of the list, I presume that would be a question for Ben and his engineers.
Are you in a conversation with them?
Yeah, in and out. Ben's been really busy the last week or so with like all the Bitcoin conference in Miami. So I've kind of just been rolling with what we had on that last design call, where he's sort of basically just said, oh, we want like the option of donation, whether it's in Lightning or by like Visa, MasterCard, recurring payments. They also have like a donation fund, where if you're not sure which projects you want to give to, you can just donate to this fund, and then maybe it's like democratically voted on how it's spent, or maybe like they just find people to like, or places to match grants. So fleshing out details, I'm not exactly sure. I've kind of just been rolling with like, well, if I was designing something like this, what would it look like? And also going off of like Gitcoin and a couple of other fundraising platforms. And that's actually another thing, is if anyone has any ideas of like more research, because I don't want to just research Gitcoin, I want to do a whole bunch of other platforms. So if anyone has any similar, whether it's like GoFundMe or something like that, if anyone has any similar platforms, then let me know and I can go research.
Yeah, I think your approach is the right one, because it sounds like there's one designer who's kind of helped out a little bit, but it's not really that hands-on. So they really just need a good foundation right now. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfectly researched and thought through, but just getting going and getting something good out there is probably the biggest deal. And then iterating. And this looks really solid already. And yeah, I think stuff like which projects make it on the homepage, they'll probably kind of be up to that board that they have. Wasn't it 8 or 9 people who decide which projects to fund and that type of stuff? So I would assume that they have some opinions on what they want to showcase and whatnot.
Decentralization.
Yeah, I mean,
no, but it's awesome. I want to see this. Yeah. I want to see you and Tanner get together and make this badass. That'd be.
Let's do it.
Make it real.
Retro style stats.
And on that note, we're gonna move on. Thank you for that, Ed and Tanner. And again, welcome, Tanner. Stephen, did you want to go next and show us something a bit different, some video exploration stuff?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let me share my screen right here. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay? I'm assuming everyone's on it. Okay, cool. Had to go back and look at the grid again. Let me maybe silence Telegram so I don't have stuff popping up everywhere. I'm gonna silence that too. In fact, I'm just gonna close out everything. Okay, cool, we're good. Yeah, so this is something I'm trying to get cranked out real quickly for Matt Bayless and Connor and Carolee's Hello Bitcoin project, and it was basically just the brief background is that they're going to launch their 3rd video, and it's a much longer video this time because I have to kind of go into this is the kind of the point in the journey where they have to start explaining some of the specifics to users about how Bitcoin actually works. The first 2 videos were kind of the why of it, and this is kind of the how it works part. So for anyone who hasn't seen Hello Bitcoin yet, I'm sure most of you have, but for anyone who hasn't, it's kind of supposed to be like the friendly place to learn about Bitcoin, the kind of true beginner place to learn about Bitcoin. And so I've been kind of laying out, in the video, which sections need graphics. And I kind of came to figure out that it really, there's a lot of sections where it calls for graphics. So ended up being I have a lot of work ahead of me. So I have kind of a background as a motion graphics artist, which is why I volunteered to help out with it. But if anyone has any spare time and wants to help me produce some graphics for this thing, I can certainly handle the animation if I can get some other designers on board helping me with it. But basically, this woman, I don't know how to pronounce her name, is walking us through the explaining how the Bitcoin network works, and I'm building in these graphic sections like this. So as an example, this is like a 1-minute sequence that's going to be animated by the end of this, and I'm just going to mute this because my experience with trying to screen share videos is that it really doesn't work well. But I'll just kind of narrate what's happening here. So basically she's saying, hey, think of Bitcoin as a huge public ledger. So I'm going to kind of animate some typography on screen. She's saying, hey, the remarkable thing about it, it's public, it's transparent, all that good stuff. So you think about it as being a ledger. It's got 2 columns, a column for the who and a column for the how much. But the thing is that in Bitcoin, we don't name things based on people's names. It's it's an address. So here we're explaining kind of what a public address is. I'll make that a little bit bigger for you. And then she goes on to describe a little bit about how each address kind of has a private key to it that accesses that address. And the next thing that she's going to describe in this part is that, the key unlocks the address, but that if you lose the key, you've essentially lost your Bitcoin forever. So I was kind of trying to portray that by just having the key kind of fall down this hole and then just having it grayed out and, kind of die. And so, yeah, we're just trying to get away with kind of some simple icons and typography that'll be synced to the voiceover. there's probably not a whole lot to look at, but you know, I've already kind of received some feedback from Matt on this about trying to simplify the way the section looks a little bit. So, you know, he was talking about trying to, you know, basically take out a lot of the, like, you know, excess numbers here and stuff like that. So I'm probably going to simplify this thing down into just more of like a key icon or something like that, and show that, like, okay, this key icon unlocks this padlock icon, and this key icon unlocks that padlock icon, that kind of thing. And I'm thinking during this section here, I'm going to, you know, actually have people's names in this column. And when we need to talk about what an address is, I'm just going to kind of very quickly, like, kind of flip the name and show, oh, it's actually, a, you know, it's actually an address full of numbers, but quickly revert it back to being a name, just so that the audience has something a little bit easier to look at when they're watching this. So that's a general idea of what we're doing here. You know, we're trying to kind of move quickly on this, so I don't have you know, time to pick apart, you know, every single frame. But just as far as what kind of feedback would be useful, just if anybody has any, you know, any initial thoughts about if the, you know, if there's anything about the design that looks unfriendly to them, or if anybody has any thoughts about, you know, ways of simplifying public addresses and private keys and things like that. Just general feedback. But I'll stop my rambling there and just turn it over to anybody else if they have feedback. And like I said, if anybody wants to help out with this project, I'm sure there's lots of graphics on this video, and there's going to be a lot more videos, so there's going to be a lot more to help out with. So I would really like it if we can, you know, turn this into something that's like where the animation and the graphics aren't dependent on me. If I can kind of open source that and build out kind of an animation style that other people can pick up and move with as we move forward with it.
I know it's not the most, sorry, first of all, great job.
Oh, thanks.
I know it's not the most technically accurate analogy, but when I was kind of like first learning about Bitcoin, and I didn't really understand what this idea of like addresses and keys was, someone described it to me as like, oh, well, your public key is basically like your email address, and your private key is kind of like your password. So you give people maybe your public key to send you Bitcoin, and then your password kind of like controls that. I don't know if that's like an easy to use analogy with keys and addresses. So take it or leave it. I know it's not entirely accurate as well, so it depends kind of how precise you want to be. Second thing I'd say is positive feedback. Looks like super clear. Black, white, and orange like work really well together stylistically, and it all seems really legible and easy to read. So yeah.
With legible, I think you need to be a little bit careful, because a lot of people video is watched on mobile, and then if you make this screen so small and you rely on people even loosely recognizing numbers, it might get a bit tricky. Or even, you know, the 126,000 sats, white on orange contrast is a bit low.
Yeah, I should
so
raise
it's just
that.
something to check on. You know, people in the subway holding their phone and watching this video.
Yeah, and I'm hoping if I can simplify this down to where these are just like icons of some sort, then we won't hopefully just not even need as many numbers on screen to begin with.
Yeah, you know, I wonder if some of these graphics remind me of some of the graphics I created for the Bitcoin Tech Primer page. I wonder if there's some overlap in between those.
Yeah, I should look and see. Copy and paste from that Figma file.
Yeah, I've worked a good amount with After Effects before too, if you need someone to hop in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like my approach to like working on this right now is I've basically like gone into Matt's script and I've like blocked out like every single section of the video that needs graphics. And so like my thoughts about how to approach this are like I'm essentially trying to like storyboard it first, to just like figure out like not focus on making things move, but just focus on what does it look like what's the composition, so that I can turn those over to Matt to provide critique on, and then once they kind of have like a solid compositions locked in place, then you know, the animation should be fairly easy, I think.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. How detailed do you want the animations to get? Like little numbers counting up all the lines, you know, with staggered animations showing up, or more like slide, next slide, next slide, or
Yeah,
just bigger objects moving one at a time?
Somewhere in between. I mean, as simple as possible, just because there's so much to do. But like, you know, as an example for here, you know, a real simple way to animate this is just like, okay, you know, put a little effect on to make the typography animate on, right? And then like this ledger thing could slide from there to there, and then this text can come in. Like real simple kind of animations like that. And then, you know, for these kinds of things, even though this composition might be changing, you know, with the naming, but just as an example, like in this kind of composition, I would just have these names kind of pop up one by one, just to kind of fill the time and make sure there's something moving. Real simple things like that.
You know, it is interesting with Lottie for web. We could also export this as a SVG animation and run it on the site.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's certainly the kind of thing like I would love, especially like in the either on the Hello Bitcoin website if they need anything there, and even like on the design guide if there's ever a situation where we need like an animation or something. I've got Lottie experience, so that would be real cool to, you know, put some Lottie animations on the site.
And Joao Barbosa asked me if he wants to integrate Lottie into the new Bitcoin Core Foundation.
Oh, that's cool.
Too.
That's cool.
You said they were trying to get this done pretty quick, Stephen. What's the timeline for us? I mean, to help you with feedback and stuff.
Oh, you know, 2 weeks ago.
Perfect. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm just trying to hustle and move as quick as I can. You know, it's like I know that was probably not the definite answer you were looking for. But
I
you
just
know,
want
it's
to
like,
be helpful for you. So if you need to
yeah.
get it done by a certain date, you know, just let us know, or DM me or someone, and we can try to see what we can do to help.
Yeah,
you.
so absolutely. I mean, like I appreciate any feedback and any help that anyone's willing to provide. I'm just going to keep moving on it, regardless of if I have help or not. So, you know, if anybody wants to pitch in and help, then that might make it go quicker. But you know, I'm going to get it done one way or the other. You know, it's kind of one of these things where there's not like a definite event that's lined up, but you know, obviously with all the FUD going around, I think, you know, Matt wants to fight the FUD, and you know, now with El Salvador, that world puts the pressure on with us Bitcoiners to, you know, make this whole thing happen. So
yeah, thank you so much, Stephen, for volunteering and helping us out. Yeah, the speed just comes from wanting to, you know, just get good material out there and get good information out to people, and we just work as best and fast as we can. So like, thank you for your efforts.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if anyone's got any other ideas, speak up now before I kind of take the floor.
Just really quick, I was going to ask, do you have it storyboarded out, like all of the different sections storyboarded?
No, that's what I'm working on. So there's like I've only got one of them storyboarded out right now. So I'm hoping to get the rest of them storyboarded out pretty soon here.
Yeah, that would be my advice, is like the more of that you can do in the forefront, like the general story comes together, and then you might see something at the end that you're like, oh yeah, I should have used that at the beginning. Like it might help just to get you, get your mind kind of aligned to what, you know, all the animation's going to play out to. But,
yeah, that's what I was trying to tell Christoph a minute ago. That I want to get the whole thing storyboarded out so we can like critique it and make sure that the compositions work before we actually start animating it.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, just to jump in quickly, this video is very meaty, hence why like there's a lot of animation that needs to go into it and a lot of visuals that go into it. But post this, the hope is that a lot of the videos will be a lot more shorter, will be addressing very specific FUD points.
Okay.
And Talking Head can do that.
The
visuals and and how
On the
things so Alexa, with how things work. So post this video, they'll be a lot shorter. So if anyone does want to help out going forward, just like reach out to me, Stephen, or Matt, or anyone else. Sorry, Alexa, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I thought maybe my mic wasn't working, and I thought, oh no, I'm seriously interrupting. Anyway, I was thinking, I like the icons that you have. I would suggest thinking on icons first. So when you have like the written out private key, for example, instead of saying private key and having the private key, actually have a key. And when you're thinking of who, I would add some kind of a person icon maybe on the list. So it'd be something that you kind of see quickly and you don't have to understand it so deeply.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't need all of those, you know, unless you animate them and add them in. You could pick just one, you know, like private key. You have the key and you don't need all the other ones. And but just think of it in a visual sense first. Maybe that would help. And maybe when you animate it, then you add the actual, you know, you add the actual words and stuff like that. But maybe it would be easier to have kind of the what you recognize first, since it's something that a lot of people don't understand. And the other thing is, I have no idea what you're actually needing. So if there's like a specific icon that you need and that you could come up with a list, maybe there's you know, maybe there's something that we can help with.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That sounds like a good idea. Yeah. And making it more visual would also make it easier to make it multilingual. Like, I mean, I don't know. It just, not that I feel like if if English isn't your first language, you could look at the icons and maybe kind of grasp the image a little better. But yeah, and also, yeah, I can put together some kind of list or something of assets that I might need.
Yeah. And even like when you have the list of like 10,000 sats or something, maybe you can have a bunch of little coins, you know, like so just so you get the concept.
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool. Thank you, Stephen. So we've got about 10 minutes left officially. Did anyone else want to go, or can I jump in? Can jump in. All right, cool. So I basically want to change the nature in which we denominate Bitcoin. And no, I'm joking. Last week or two, I have been thinking a bit about denominations and units and symbols and this kind of stuff. It's kind of sparked from this tweet. Oh God, screen sharing is failed. Screen sharing is failed. Okay, hold on. No, okay, so I'm just going to post the tweet in the chat instead. But I want to have this very short conversation because we do have an issue that's been around in the design guide around units and symbols and how we display them. This tweet suggests something that has been around for quite a long time and has some notable names in the Bitcoin space who advocate for presenting.
Real quick, is there another way to send that tweet? It looks like it doesn't exist. I don't want to cut you off. I apologize. But
no, of course.
The context isn't really there for us. Just want to be upfront.
Yep. All right, let me
It's just twitter.com twice in the URL there.
Oh, so my URL structure's gone on. All right, let me do this instead. I'll send the Reddit tweet, Reddit thread instead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to understand what you're saying. So
no,
I think it's only that it repeats the Twitter. You know, it says HTTPS
no, it's okay. It's okay.
Twitter.
It's okay. Yeah, so there's
okay.
Fixed it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. There's two in there. So there's a Reddit thread and there's the tweet as well. So basically, this is just like a conversation around like how we denominate Bitcoin. Currently, like some people would argue that Sats is the standard and that we should not worry about having like a dual denominated currency such that most of or a large percentage of the countries in the world use, i.e. dollars and cents, pounds and pence, and that kind of format. So these threads basically propose the idea of having a dual denominated Bitcoin where bits and sats are basically the units. And from my understanding is that 1 Bitcoin would equal 1,000 bits. There would be 100 sats per bit. And this makes this helps with, I guess, like some of the unit bias that we see from like the average user finding it difficult to use like sats as a way to convert into whatever local currency they're using. And I'm just trying to like get my head around on whether this is actually more intuitive or not, or if like having just 1 unit symbol is more is the path we need to go. But ultimately, I want to see like exploration in this kind of space, because although like crypto Twitter might argue that like sats is the standard, and you see this meme floated about, I don't actually think that is anywhere near consensus for the whole entire community. Like, we're still so early, people don't understand what sats are. People look at denominations in Bitcoin and then they see these 8 decimal places, and it can be quite scary. It can be quite hard to measure value that way, especially if you're not used to it. So this is another proposed way of presenting these denominations. So I would like to see something that like visualizes the different denominations, bits and sats only, milli Bitcoins, like whether it's just like a dashboard format. It's Christoph in the back of Christoph's screen. He's got like an Excel spreadsheet which basically shows you like the different units and denominations and the conversions for the different currencies and stuff. I don't know if like we can add something like bits and sats to that.
It's already in there.
Oh, is it already in there? Oh, okay, cool.
So here on the right, this one is just, it uses Google Finance, which can do all of this conversion. So these are just a handful of currencies that I picked. And then here in the middle, and these here, that's where it converts it to Bitcoin, milli Bitcoin, micro Bitcoins, and Satoshi. And then here, it's whatever amount I type in here, that's just what it's going to display. So I'll share that link if anybody wants to mess with it.
So Connor, you're saying you think we should have a sort of a bit in the design guide that goes into this? Is that what we're kind of thinking or brainstorming?
Yeah, I mean, there's already an issue open to explore this, but is this something people want to see explored? I mean, I'm sure people want to see explored, but like, how would people want to see this approached? Some people I've spoken to talk about like, now that El Salvador has Bitcoin as legal tender, like maybe there's shops on the ground that could use very low cost like price tags where they experiment with using this denomination and see like how intuitive it is for people there, or something of that nature. But I'm just thinking about best ways to best explore this this proposal, really.
Mock it up, make it look real.
It's a really interesting topic. I think one of the biggest hurdles that, like, we have introducing Bitcoin just to newbies is that it is divisible. Like, I think a lot of people still have a hard time even understanding that you can buy parts of a Bitcoin. Like, and once more people understand that, then, you know, I think the more people will start to adopt it. But I've seen this conversation go back and forth, and I think someone designed like a symbol for a sat as well, right? Like a Satoshi icon. I think it really comes down to how it is surfaced or how it's displayed whenever you are converting it, right? Like, you could convert it a million different ways and show it to different currencies and people around the world, but they're not going to really grok it until they see it like, oh, my $5 is worth this many Satoshis or this many bits. So I think that that's like one of the because we can talk about it and we can put it in videos or explain it, but until it's actually used and people observe it being converted, I think that that's probably big design challenge. I would say more so than the language itself, the nomenclature we choose for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, I'm glad these conversations are happening, but I think the biggest issue right now with any kind of unit, whether it's Satoshis or micro Bitcoin or regular Bitcoin, is just the fact that everything is dollar denominated. And so, to my understanding, even in El Salvador, it's still going to be, you know, businesses are still going to be denominating debt in dollars. They just, you know, have to accept Bitcoin as payment now, or something to that effect. And it's, you know, it's like ultimately the price fluctuation with the dollar, I think, is probably what is going to trip people up the most. Because, you know, like, let's say we all agree that we're going to denominate everything in Bitcoin, 0.0000 whatever. Well, you still have to deal with the flight price. That doesn't tell you anything informative about the money, because if everything's denominated in dollars, you still have this sense of chaos. And let's say we all agree we want to denominate everything in bits. Again, it doesn't tell you anything useful about the value because we're denominating everything in dollars. So, I mean, I personally feel like the big design challenge to solve right now, in terms of mass adoption, is, you know, finding a good UI way to, you know, let people, you know, visualize it in whatever their other native currency is, whether that's a dollar or, you know, a peso or a gourd or whatever. And you know, I think the conversations around micro Bitcoin and milli Bitcoin and all that are good, but I think that will kind of work itself out over the course of a decade or so.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect design exploration challenge. I think it would be great to have something in the guide, but it's too early, right? We don't know what the answer is. So I would love to see or help with an exploration here, actually looking at real situations, like you know, the imaginary future in El Salvador, when someone is going to the grocery shop and they have an amount of Bitcoin and they need to pay for their tomatoes, their fruits, and whatever, right? What does the grocer show, and how does the person buying actually, you know, think about this in their wallet, etc. Some practical examples, because at the moment, you know, it's fairly theoretical. There is some lightning action, people sending sats and stuff, but it's mostly not for real goods. So I think it's something we could actually help with. I don't think we are going to be able to make a decision for anybody, but we could lay out clear, you know, different scenarios where we've actually looked into things, and here's what happens if you follow this route, and here's what happens if you imagine a different usage. So I think that's maybe something we should do over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I was also just going to say, I agree with Daniel that we're probably not going to be able to immediately decide on anything. I think it's a really interesting conversation to have. I kind of agree that the problem isn't necessarily always to do with the denomination of Bitcoin. It's perhaps also due to the extreme fluctuation in price. Like, perhaps as the price of a Satoshi gets closer to $1, it'll be easier to denominate it in Satoshis. So maybe for the time being, finding something like, the first thought that came to my mind was, okay, if there are 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin, maybe we just divide that by 100, so we go for like a millibit, which is what, like $35 or something. The next thing I thought, or at least somewhere where we could maybe take inspiration from or research from, is countries which have like hyperinflated currencies. So if you look at like the Bolivar, for example, if it's like $1 is 100 million Venezuelan Bolivar, how do they deal with it? Is there any research to suggest that people actually get confused about that sort of thing? Do they try and denominate it in like thousands of Bolivar or millions of Bolivar? I don't know, just a thought in terms of like, because that seems to be where maybe the problem is. The fact is that one of the currencies is like basically hyperinflated in terms of its denomination. The other one isn't. It's also fixed. So maybe we should move away from the dollar and start pricing Bitcoin in petroleum cans or something. I don't know, but
I'd be curious if there are existing patterns. There must be some countries or areas where people are very, very comfortable switching back and forth between two currencies. Maybe they live across a border. Maybe it's some country where the US dollar lives right next to the local currency. I'm just curious what existing solutions there would be, and also how people learn. I mean, if you let's say if you've lived in a different country, what was your way to get used to the change in value? What did you do? Did you, like, the first time, did you sit there with your calculator and back and forth, or how did you go about it? How long did it take? Right? How was your thing? How did your thinking change? Must be two interesting subtopics there for me.
I just dramatically overpaid for my first coffee. I think that was.
I mean, one way of looking at this is in terms of a transition. Instead, like, ideally we would not forever be stuck in a situation where we have to convert back and forth forever, right? You can never force a currency change, from bottom up, like this is trying to do. But Europe went through, the change from various different currencies to the euro. It's probably the most recent example of where you can, like, on a mass scale, actually see what happened and how people thought about it. So I think that's often quite a useful thing, because in the beginning people are like, oh my God, I still think in the old currency. I have to kind of, think in the new one, but then how long do they remain thinking about the old one? And so that's interesting to read up on. But for a design exploration, you might have to jump ahead. Forget about the short-term answer and, like, imagine, like, okay, you don't need to translate to the dollar anymore or the bolivar or whatever it is. You are transacting in Bitcoin because that's what you get paid in. That's what you pay in. You have to imagine that leap first, maybe, and then see, like, okay, well, how do we end up there? Because I think this thinking about, well, we could split it in this way to get parity with, like, $100. That's never going to work because it's always going to be fluctuating. And I wouldn't want to kind of hang any solution on that because it's very US specific and it's also not going to last. But yeah, I think it's super interesting, this topic.
You're saying there are other countries that matter?
No, not really, but we have to pretend.
Okay.
All right, cool. Just to respect everyone's time, we'll come to a close now. But yeah, thanks for that. I mean, just on that topic, I just definitely want to see. It seems like it's a very potent research project for someone, and definitely exciting exploration. So yeah, I'd like to see some kind of work being done on that. So yeah, is anyone got any kind of closing thoughts before we end today in this kind of fast round design review session that we've had here? Some UI stuff, some just general chit chat. No, all good. We've had Tanner join us as well, and I think our man Ben Price is floating around as well. Hi Ben, I think you joined a bit late, but nice to have you here nonetheless.
Yeah, what's up? Just in the airport. Sorry, I'm trying to run.
No worries. You missed the two OpenSats designs, man. Like people are going hard for the open. Yeah, people are going hard for the OpenSats guys. So catch up with Tanner and Ed afterwards, and you guys make the magic happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to check out the recording, but I was checking out the Figma file and it's looking awesome. We just have to find some developers to actually build it out.
Yeah, awesome. All right, cool guys. I'll stop the recording, and obviously if anyone wants to hang